Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Line update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel on the Believe Network. I'm Tom Hannafin. He's Justin King. We are so excited to be along the ride with this college football season with FanDuel. Big thanks to the Believe Podcast Network for making this all possible. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about FanDuel with us here on State of State throughout the season and beyond this upcoming year. So thank you very much to FanDuel for making us a part of the family. We're really excited about this upcoming season. We're going to dive into a lot of different topics today. Obviously, Penn State's chances of winning a national championship, what's going on at training camp right now. I want to specifically talk about the nickel corner position on Jim Knowles' defense, and especially what he refers to in the past as the jack position. Penn State tends to refer to it as the lion position, what that hybrid position looks for. And then also, what is Jim Knowles' defense really going to put on tape for the first month of the season, considering Penn State's biggest test will be September 27th against Oregon early on in the season, that is. And up until then, not a ton of top flight competition, no disrespect to those teams. So a lot of stuff for us to get into. Justin, I want to start off with, what have you heard so far out of Penn State's training camp? They got started this past Wednesday, so very little practice time thus far, but still.
I mean, at the beginning of the day, you guys are getting into this fall camp and with a lot of expectations. So you got a lot of competition going on. I think that's one of the things that have set Penn State up for success is the competitive environment that they operate in. And so it was the first time with full pads on and guys running around. So I think that's where we're at the first couple of days.
Any particular players that you're hearing like, oh, okay, there's at least some buzz?
Yeah, a little bit. I think there was a Kobe Howard, the freshman receiver. Pete Gonzalez is back from ACL. Make a couple plays, and then they haven't really opened up much, but those are just things that I've seen scrolling around. And again, the first couple of days of practice, everybody's coming out with their hair on fire. Let's see how everybody maintains or sustains that level of intensity and success.
I was going to say, from your experience being a part of James Franklin's staff in the late 2010s, those first few days of training camp for Penn State under James Franklin.
After once they get into full pads, his practices are they're tough practices. Let me put it that way. Like, they're out there working in the sense that they start off with a competitive period, calling out the young guys and pretty much seeing who can earn their stripes. They have a giving of the stripe type of ceremony for players throughout the team. And sometimes in the fall, that's when a lot of these things happen because guys are earning their stripes from that competitive environment and being game ready. It's one thing doing the stuff in the spring, in the summer, and the workouts, but now it's like, okay, who can we trust in the fall? And so that evaluation needs pressure cooker moments. So I think he does a great job of bringing pressure cooker moments into the practice early and often.
Considering the expectations for this season, we always like to refer to it as Penn State should credibly contend for the national championship this year, according to FanDuel, where you can make every moment more. Penn State is plus 750 to win the national championship this year. And I think we recently saw on social media, somebody placed a bet. Was it for $1 million or two? Or no, it was $200,000, I think, for Penn State to win the national championship at plus 750, and it would have netted them, I think, 1.7, something like that. So, if you've got, six figures lying around, Justin, you could place a decent bet right now and you could just sail off into the sunset.
Yeah, if you got $200K to throw up, I was pushing it all in, man. Put it all on black. But no, the gambling industry is, extremely interesting, especially when you believe in your teams at the college level. I think is the betting is a little different than the pros, but someone's pretty confident.
Somebody's confident. I think there's a lot of Penn State fans that are confident. So I want to take a moment and look at a specific position within Jim Knowles' defense. And you and I have talked so much about the position battles, and we invite everybody watching and listening to go back into our recent episodes, whether it's with Landon Tengwall, our recent guest, or with Justin and I talking about those position battles that we're going to be focusing on as more information comes out of camp. But I think one position that is going to have a lot of focus in season, and especially right now in training camp, is that nickel corner spot. And Jim Knowles' defense is known for having that jack position, that lion position. He runs a base 4-2-5 defense. That's what Penn State has run for a little while now, so it's not necessarily terribly foreign, but 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. General feeling is that linebackers will be linebackers within this defense. So you could see a linebacker, depending on their skill set, migrate into that lion position. Could be a safety, could be a corner. But there's a lot of people that are speculating that nickel spot, that jack spot, that lion spot, could be a guy like Zion Tracy. It could be a guy like King Mack. From your experience, both playing at Penn State and playing in the National Football League at every position, basically a defensive back, what does that position ask of a player?
I would say it's the most versatile position on the field. It's interesting that it comes in sub packages, but I have a lot of respect for just the nickel position in general because you're dealing with all 3 levels of the defense. You have to be strong enough, big enough, and tough enough to handle the run. You have to be smart enough to set the fronts and the linebacker fits, and the back end coverages based on shifts. And then you have to play all those different positions when the play actually happens, right? Like you have run responsibility, you have intermediate responsibilities, and you have over the top responsibilities, depending on if you're playing man, zone, or different things of that nature, and providing significant help to the different areas on the field. Again, the front end, the linebackers, and the back end. So like, it's one of those positions that is a very mental position, an instinctual position for a football player. It's a football player's position. You know what I mean? Guys that make plays and understand how to make plays within the scheme and understanding the holes and like their leverage and opportunities to make plays within the defense. It's not an accidental type of position where you can just throw somebody out there and they can feel their way around. No, like they have to have a strong football acumen and understanding of the entire defense. So it's one of my favorite positions to evaluate and watch because it's underappreciated position as well. Because again, when they make the plays that it may be like a 3-yard stop on a 3rd and 7 versus a pass breakup, we don't understand when they are not in those positions what type of game-breaking opportunities the offense presents themselves. So like they're the X factor on the defense that can really keep things under wrap and become playmakers, given the right situation.
It's funny. It was just a few seasons ago that Penn State was spoiled at defensive back, or spoiled again at defensive back. And shout out to Terry Smith in charge of Lockdown U within the Penn State football staff. And it's interesting. I look back on Daquan Hardy, who was a stellar nickel corner for Penn State, and he kind of hit the nail on the head with that word, underappreciated. I think you and I and a lot of people certainly recognize his skill set, and he accomplished a lot at Penn State. He was able to contribute on special teams his final season at Penn State. And I think that's ironically what opened most people's eyes, but he was just Mr. Dependable at defensive back and in that nickel position. But from what you understand about Jim Knowles, what are maybe some things that he asks of a nickel defensive back that might not be similar in other places? Or would you say it's like, oh no, it's about what you expect?
I think it's about what you expect all over the place, man. You play that nickel position, again, that X factor situations, like you have to have gonads to make plays in the pass, and you have to be tough enough to make plays in the run game. And you're dealing with receivers that are typically the shiftiest guys, on the field, those interior receivers that have option routes. So they're pivoting off of your leverage. You're essentially the telltale for all the quarterbacks. I mean, they tell you in the NFL that the quarterbacks read the safeties to get the coverages, but that's not necessarily true. They read the nickel. I mean, with the nickel's playing man, he's inside, he's playing 2, he's outside. And that kind of gives away the defense a lot of times. So again, what you're asking the nickel to be is, I mean, a showman and a playmaker, right? Like that's kind of what he is. And I would compare it to like that, I'm trying to think of like that like the way that Tyler Warren was used on offense last year. That's how you would think. That's how you would think of a nickel to be able to defend all those different movements. So that would be its comparison.
What do you think about those 2 players that I mentioned, Zion Tracy and King Mack, potentially being the person to play in that position? Let's start with Tracy. He had his ups and downs last year. He has a ton of potential, but I think there's a lot of people who are going to point towards some of his struggles, especially the Notre Dame game. And I think that's top of mind for a lot of Penn State fans. I think no one's going to forget about that when it comes to Drew Aller, especially, but there's such a larger body of work to talk about. What do you think Zion Tracy does that could be a great fit for that spot?
He has a good feel for the game, and he makes plays. Like, I mean, courageous plays. Like, I mean, it takes courage to see a play jump to the interception spot and be able to do that. He's one of the few guys that had a pick six last year from that interior side, whether it was like say it was like a seam drive or drive seam type of concept. And it takes football instincts, right? He's a punt returner. So even from that fearlessness of being able to have offensive value or special teams value, but I think him being able to cover and understand how to make plays in that interior position is something that he does a little different. And he's an elite athlete. I just want to, I mean, he moves around like Spider-Man a little bit out there. And I'm a Zion Tracy fan.
King Mack, interesting story, was at Penn State, highly touted recruit, one season, transfers to Alabama, and there were a lot of people that were up in arms about that, thought that if he had stayed, he had the potential to have rotated in, especially when early last season KJ Winston went down. I think every Penn State fan was like, man, if King Mack had stayed, and he was struggling to get on the field at Alabama, now is back at Penn State. And once again, has a golden opportunity to potentially start at safety or at least be a regular contributor in this secondary. He's known for being a very violent player, loves to hit. So when you have that type of player at nickel, what are the positives? What are the negatives?
I mean, the positives, I mean, anybody that comes back from the safety standpoint, they're used to dealing with run fits and filling in zones and things of that nature. So it's more of a natural safety position. When you bring in a corner, I mean, just comparing the two, a little bit more value in the coverage standpoint, right? But if you get a guy that can cover and make the plays, it becomes a preference and the type of situations that the defensive coordinator are going to put them in. I mean, I played for Spag, who you had to do everything, right? I had to be 200 pounds. You got to be able to tackle. You got to be able to cover. You got to be able to do all those things. But some nickels are strictly cover guys, right? When they play man inside and pretty much covering down explosive offenses that have those X factors in the interior. But someone with like a King Mack that has an understanding of safety, playing different positions, he fits that mold of that nickel position as well. Someone that has a full grasp of the defense, understand how to be physical, making plays. And that's who he was coming out of high school. Let's not get it twisted, even though he had the transfer portal and things of that nature. He comes from St. Thomas Aquinas, so he's been groomed to be a pretty well-rounded football player, to put it slightest. So, I mean, that's what you would think from him, probably a little bit more physical of a presence in the run game and things of that nature. But yeah, time will tell.
State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. Very curious to see how that position develops, and like we're biased here with Lockdown U, the defensive backs for Penn State, but at the same time, there is so much depth at corner, especially, but depth at safety. So to see who Jim Knowles wants to use in that spot at nickel, who he wants to use for the Lion Jack position. And it's not to rule out, kind of like I was saying before, it's not to rule out that linebackers won't play in that situation. It's just you're not going to see a ton of sets where there are three linebackers on the field. It'll depend on the opponent. It'll depend on the down and distance, the situation, all those sorts of things. But this is primarily going to be a two linebacker, Mike Will type of setup. So I'm curious to see which corners and defensive backs emerge, especially in that race for that nickel spot, because there is just so much talent to look at. Talking about Jim Knowles, there's still so much that he is learning about this defense and figuring out about his roster. Only got on campus back in the winter, and there's still players that he's evaluating now. And I think what you're going to hear, Justin, in the next few weeks is you'll probably hear people say, well, the offense is ahead of the defense. And I was like, well, the offense has been in the same scheme now for its second offseason and returned most of its starters that weren't at wide receiver and Tyler Warren. So I think you're going to hear that, and I want to encourage Penn State fans to not freak out. You still have Jim Knowles evaluating a lot of critical pieces of this defense. The thing that's interesting to me, Justin, first 3 games of the season are against Nevada, who Penn State opens up with as a 45.5 point favorite, according to FanDuel. So go ahead and bet that if you want to. I'm curious to see where that number lies at the end of the day. So that's August 30th. Then you play FIU. Then you play Villanova. Then you get a bye week in September. Then you host Oregon on September 27th in a night game, in a whiteout, the first whiteout legitimately against Penn State's best home opponent in 6 years. So it's going to be a hostile environment, period. All things should be leaning in Penn State's favor up against Oregon. But realistically, if you're in Jim Knowles' position, how much do you put on tape before the Oregon game?
I think you play straight up all the way across the board and just, come with pressure and create confusion, not from that standpoint, but disruption from just being better than those guys, rushing and covering, tackling, doing all the basics right at a high level. I think you do that. Some of the best defenses that I ever played, whether in college or in NFL, played pretty straight up type styles. Show that from those first 3 games. And then when you get into Oregon, you start getting a little bit more exotic in terms of blitzes, switching up coverages and things of that nature. But I think the first 3 games, man, you come out, play guys straight up and apply pressure, whether it's just man up, leaving guys without any help, but just really being aggressive, but more so straight up, not exotic.
Did you like having a bye week right before a game of that magnitude when you were a player? Or would you rather have been like, hey, I'd rather just be rolling week to week?
I like rolling week to week, but you got to be healthy, man. You know, sometimes coming out of camp, your body's beat up, and it's always good to have that week off before you play someone. I mean, especially if the preparation and the staff is getting guys ready to roll. I mean, that's critical. I mean, first 3 games, get out there, have a little nicks and bruises. It's always good before you play someone of an equal stature that you can be healthy for.
As I mentioned, September 27th, Penn State hosts Oregon. Very strong chance these are 2 top 5 undefeated teams at that juncture. Now, according to FanDuel, Penn State is favored by 4.5 going into that game. There's still the question of what does the Oregon offense look like now with quarterback Dante Moore at the helm? I think the much larger question, and I want to get your opinion on this, is that Jim Knowles with Ohio State last year played Oregon twice. Those are 2 very different games. In the regular season at Oregon, that was a very disappointing loss. Last play of the game, Will Howard losing track of time. It went the way that it went, but it was very evenly matched in terms of the score, and it was pretty even most of the game. Then you get into the playoff. Oregon gets thumped by Ohio State offensively and defensively. So Jim Knowles clearly learned a lot of his lessons. He's dealing with essentially the same staff that Dan Lanning had last year. There's going to be changes in terms of personnel, obviously, changes in the roster, of course. But Jim Knowles has that piece to play, especially going into the Oregon game. So 3 weeks of non-con games where you probably show nothing, then a bye week, then a game where you have the other team with expectations. From your experience as a player and as a member of a number of staffs, how do you manage situations like that? How do you manage that chess game?
I mean, having a full understanding of your offense and defense and how you're approaching the game is pretty critical, whether it's the philosophy, whether it's like how we want to attack them, just different things that come within the game planning. I think that's critical, understanding your identity. I mean, we something we've talked about in the past couple of years, but leaning on that at the beginning of the year, especially when you're coming into tough competition, because there's no trickery when you play good teams, right? It's like, I do this, you do that. Let's see what happens. Like it's not as strategic as some people may think, because there's talent discrepancies and you have to find them and exploit them or defend them. You know what I mean? And so going to the game, you just want to make sure that the whole team is pretty much striking on the same accord and in shape and tough enough to keep up with the pace of the game, especially like with the weather at that time of the year.
as of now, Penn State favored by 4.5 over Oregon, according to FanDuel. How do you feel about that line, considering where we're sitting right now in August?
It's fair.
It's encouraging. And
Yeah,
I think
encouraging.
it is a signal that at least the outside world sees the potential in Penn State to have a big time season. I think, yes, there's questions about Dante Moore as a quarterback for Oregon. What do they return? A lot of pieces went off to the National Football League, but still, there's a lot of times Penn State has drawn games like this, and it's a razor thin margin. And if anything, Penn State's often an underdog in situations like this. So I think, to my eyes, it's an indicator of faith from the outside world. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a indicator of faith, but also, I mean, just nodding our head to, I mean, I think people recognize that Penn State has a pretty strong team, and playing at Beaver Stadium is a tough place.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if you'll be able to attend the game. The fact that NBC, Penn State, the Big Ten made this happen, a whiteout, finally. I don't mean to say it doesn't mean anything, Justin, but it's just not meant the same. You know what I mean? The last couple of seasons.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I don't think I've been to the last whiteout. One thing I went 2 years ago, but for that purpose, because it's like, let's see which one to hit to. But no, I mean, a night game, Oregon, early in the season, good weather. It's going to be a scene.
I'm looking forward to it. Training camp has just gotten underway, so more news, notes, information is going to come out. We're going to have it all right here on State of State, presented by FanDuel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Any questions, comments, concerns about these position battles, all that sort of stuff that you guys might have rolling into the season, get in our comments section. Hit us up on social media. This is State of State. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel for just 99 cents a month. You can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by FanDuel.